This podcast is not intended to provide any investment advice. The opinions expressed here by either the hosts or guests do not necessarily reflect the views of PSA, Collectors Holdings, or any of their affiliates. Any discussion of collectible values in the past or present is not a guarantee of future performance.
Hello and welcome to The Index. My name is Chris McGill, and I'm here with Ryan Green and Jack Archer. The Index discusses the hobby from the vantage point of price data and market trends provided by Card Ladder. Here's the rundown. First, we overview notable auction prices realized over the last month, and then we discuss market swings, both by player and by card. So Ryan, let's get started.
Yes, let's. We are going to take a look at everything April 2023. Looking into the Card Ladder data, and we're going to start, as you mentioned, notable auctions, and we've got a big one to get to right off the bat. One of the most polarizing sales that I can remember in a while in the hobby. I'm super fascinated by it. Chris, what do we got?
Yeah, let me give some background on it, and then it'd be interesting to hear about the different poles of the polarization. But first, here's some background. The card is the 2022 Prism WWE, The Rock, black 1 of 1 in a PSA 7 holder. It sold for a mind-boggling $126,000 at auction. Now, some facts to keep in mind. This year of Prism WWE, the 2022, it's the debut year of Prism WWE, and so this is the first ever Prism Black 1 of 1 of Dwayne Johnson. The highest sale of a card of The Rock ever was this particular Prism Black. The previous high was his 1994 Miami Bumblebee PSA 10. I'm not sure if everybody can imagine that card in their mind's eye, but it was a highly visible card about 2 years ago, and it sold for $90,000 in February of 2021. That was the peak of the pricing for this particular card. That card now is about a $12,000 card, or at least the last time it sold, it did $11,700 at auction in November of 2022. One might even wonder how much would this Rock card have sold for 2 years ago, the Prism Black, but it's tough to tell. The last thing I want to point out here is that this is the highest sale of a wrestling card ever, to my knowledge. Okay, so there's the background on this, incredible sale. If we could talk maybe a little bit about what's got people on two different sides of this sale. I'm fascinated by it as well, Ryan.
My first reaction was, oh my God, this is so cool. I'm really big on cultural crossover, and, with The Rock and the WWE cards, and, you mentioned the Bumblebee card that has the perforated edges from his days playing football at Miami. I feel like his cultural crossover impact really lifts his market on a card side. And so my first reaction when I saw this was, one, this is an incredibly cool card for so many reasons. The design, the Prism branding,
the photo,
the photo,
the body slam.
Unbelievable. Like, I just was so blown away by this sale, and I thought the price seemed just really healthy. I didn't think it was crazy at all because of who The Rock is and what he means, just across so many different fronts. I was blown away by it, and I thought it was really cool, but then I was really surprised to see, some people kind of having different reactions to it.
I was too. This is The Rock. This is Prism Black. This is as good as it gets. And the wrestling fan base is so passionate about collecting and about the thing that they love. This honestly didn't surprise me. And I'm really wondering what all the hoopla on the negative was about this sale.
Yeah, no, I'm with you guys too. This is a sale that validates the community building and the arrival of a new wave of wrestling card collectors, and the unity of the new wave with the established traditional wrestling card collectors, who they have a rich history in this hobby that goes back decades as well. So it's a sale that really puts wrestling cards on a new tier, I think, in the hobby hierarchy. And that is always going to produce a level of, skepticism, maybe some negativity, just because it's something new, it's shocking, and I think a lot of people who are not part of the wrestling card community are going to look at this and they're just going to say, this is cool, but do it a few times. Like, let's see this sustain itself. Just like if like a player has like a breakout game, and like, Matt Corral of the, or just pick a quarterback. That's a weird one, but just like pick a quarterback and he has a 500-yard game, week 2 of the NFL season. You say, okay, good. That's a really impressive game, but let me see you do it for a whole season. And so I think there's some skepticism there. People don't want to get duped. They don't want to think that, hey, there's something, this is an outlier or something isn't right here. So they want to see more. And I think there's some members of the wrestling card community who this is a bittersweet moment for them, because if this portends a rapid growth and interest in the wrestling card, category of our industry, then that probably means prices are going to go up. And that probably means it's going to get a lot more difficult for them to continue to add cards to their collection. So there's certainly a positive, optimistic spin, but there's plenty of reasons why there's going to be skepticism around a sale like this too.
I loved what you said about, this just being such new territory for wrestling cards. You go back and look when The Rock had, or at the time, Rocky Maivia had his first WWF at the time, I believe, maybe even still, wrestling cards in the late 90s. I mean, they were just base paper standard cards. Meanwhile, the hobby in, basketball, baseball, football was undergoing this huge revolution of design and just all this new technology coming into it. And wrestling didn't have that. So now you're seeing wrestling on this level playing field with what's available with the major sports. I think this is, I just think this is awesome.
I mean, in some ways, in Prism, yeah, but like there's no like flawless like RPA WWE cards. And if there was, I think it'd be a pretty big deal.
Hopefully this opens the door to getting there.
Yeah. When it comes to comparing cards from different eras and different subject matters, it's just not always even. It's not even like comparing like gasoline cars versus electric cars. It's like comparing like horse and buggy versus Teslas. This whole different ball game.
All right, moving on. We've got a pretty big ultra modern baseball sale, Chris.
Yeah, so I'm going to need backup from you guys on a number of levels here. And I'm going to attempt to even produce the name of the card, and we'll see how that works out. But selling for $124,800 is the 2020 Bowman Chrome Sapphire autograph, Anthony Volpe, Pad Paraja, 1 of 1. Okay, and it was graded PSA 10, so I mean, absolutely stunning card on multiple levels. This sale happened with Golden in April as well, and it's the second highest Volpe sale ever. The one higher was for $150,000 13 months ago, and that was his Bowman Chrome autograph red out of 5 PSA 10. So I'll let you guys teach me maybe a little something about the import of this sale and about how this particular player is playing right now.
I mean, he's a starting shortstop for the New York Yankees.
Exactly.
There's going to be a huge collecting base for this. What I find pretty interesting is, like, yes, the market was hotter a year ago, but baseball card collectors, more than any other sport, I would say, are more traditionalist. In the Bowman Chrome True Red out of 5, there's just a longer lineage, longer history, a little bit more staying power than Sapphire, which is new, and then this new 1 of 1, which I'm not even going to try to pronounce because I know I'm going to butcher it.
I'll tell you what, I think the timing of the sale matters too. The hype really high on Volpe coming up. He had a really good spring training to the point where they couldn't deny him. And he made the opening day roster. At the time of this recording, he's having a pretty good season so far. Nothing mind blowing, but he's got an OBP over 300. He's stealing a lot of bases. And Jack, as you mentioned, the Yankee premium, and not only the Yankee premium, shortstop for the New York Yankees premium. There's just a lot going for this card. And I mentioned the timing. He doesn't have flagship rookie cards yet. Really what you have is his first Bowman to set the market. Now, would this sale look the same, say, a year from now after he has a full run of Topps flagship rookie cards, Topps Chrome parallels, super fractors, and all of that? But what I think this shows is that, while the hype was really high on him coming into the season, it hasn't really cooled off a whole ton, even though he's played good, not great. I think it's a pretty good indicator moving forward as his flagship rookie cards hit the market.
I feel pretty confident about Volpe, speaking honestly. His arrival to the show, a little bit early.
Yeah.
A lot earlier than most collectors and most baseball fans thought. So I think double-digit steals. You said OBP over 300. He just kind of has that. He looks great in a Yankees uniform. He has that that kind of hustle feel for the game. There's a lot to like about Volpe. I mean, and this card is absolutely stunning. I think Sapphire parallels like over time compared to the true Topps Chrome refractors. It's going to be pretty interesting to see how those shake out over time. You see it with F1. Sapphire definitely commands a premium over the true color. Baseball, not always 1-to-1. Usually, I think the true color outpaces the Sapphire. But I think over time, things might shift. We'll see.
All right. And we're in the middle of the NBA playoffs. So, of course, we got to get a basketball sale in here, too. What stood out from April 2023?
Yeah, this was a fascinating sale. For $84,000, the 2017 Flawless Vertical RPA Green out of 5 Jason Tatum PSA 10 with a nice chunky 2-color patch and some stitching. This card went 5th highest of any Jason Tatum card of all time. So $84,000 is a substantial sale in the Tatum catalog of sales. The highest sale ever for a Tatum was his National Treasures RPA out of 99. A PSA 10 sold for $193,200 a year ago. Now, that seems like a big difference between $193,000 a year ago versus the $84,000 for the Flawless today. But if you use Card Ladder's index to estimate Card Ladder's Jason Tatum index to estimate a price for what that NTRPA would sell for today, the price estimate is right around $100,000. So we're actually much closer, I think, in value than what those two, non-contextualized price points tell us. And I think on the flip, I actually think it's pretty bullish, a pretty bullish indicator for Tatum's market to see this card, which is in all respects a stunning card. It features a really nice shot of Tatum shooting with his, and you can already see, it's just his form is unmistakable. It's the green parallel, so it's this nice jersey color match that's going on between the foil on the card and the patch and the player's jersey. It's and it's a PSA 10-10, or a PSA 20 as Jack once referred to it. So this is a beautiful card. It's a strong sale, and for my money, I like the Celtics as the best team in the NBA playoffs right now. I think, that's not really going out on a limb. 538 Raptor gives them 50-50 odds basically to win the championship. Much better odds than any other team. But I just think a lot of things are lining up, and I think we haven't even seen close to Tatum's best in these playoffs yet. I think he still has another level to get to. So that's just a really neat sale, a strong sale of one of Tatum's coolest cards.
Absolutely love this card. Love the color match. Select also green out of 5, kind of sleeper veteran Jason Tatum color match cards, because Prism has the retail. They're pretty all over the place, easy to obtain, definitely collectible because of how pretty they are, but not difficult to find. The Select out of 5, and I think Optic green out of 5 as well, kind of sleeper color match cards. Of course, the out of 5 here for Flawless, just a beautiful card, strong sale, great player. I have bias, but love this sale. Love this card.
Love that patch. Like normal, I love where a patch is somewhat identifiable, and by just looking at the stitching there, you can kind of see it's either from the Boston on the front of a white jersey or from the nameplate on the back. Just a nice card all around. Is he winning a ring this year, Jack?
I don't know, man. It's a lot of good teams. A lot of good teams. We'll see.
All right. We're going to take a really quick break, and we will be right back to talk rising and falling player and card indexes. So stick with us. Be right back. Hey guys, it's Ryan, tapping back in here really quick before the episode continues. So we're into May, and consider this a reminder that our Collectors Club member exclusive grading specials we launched last month are good until the very end of this month. Yes, I mean literally until 11:59 p.m. Pacific time on Wednesday, May 31st. The current offering of specials is of course highlighted by our 2022 and 2023 sports card special. Sports cards from 2022 and 2023 products can now be graded for $16 per card. This includes, of course, highlight products such as 2022 Panini Prism Basketball and Football, which recently released, and a bevy of flagship products dropping throughout the month of May. The declared value limit for this special is $299 per card, with an estimated turnaround time of 40 days per order. We are also offering discounted pricing on our Super Express service level for cards with a declared value up to $4,999, featuring an estimated turnaround time of just 5 business days. Super Express is perfect for those big hits you're getting this spring as you rip into wax from the big products such as National Treasures, Flawless, and more. Through the end of the month, we're offering $100 off of our Super Express service for card grading, $130 off for dual grading service. We do have one more special this month to throw into the mix. On May 4th, of course, we introduced Star Wars card and Funko Pop grading specials that are good through the end of May as well. One of the coolest categories in non-sports collectibles, we're offering $15 a card grading on Star Wars cards from all years with a maximum declared value of $199 per card. And Star Wars Funko Pop grading is starting at just $35 per pop. I know that's a lot, but we're offering a lot here to our Collectors Club members throughout May. For full details and information on these specials, visit psacard.com/specials. And if you're not yet a Collectors Club member, it's just $99 a year to join today. Visit psacard.com/join to get started and learn more. Time to bring the guys back in. Let's get on with the show. Okay, we're back here taking a look at the index April 2023. And we're going to jump into rising and falling player indexes. Let's start with the riser. Going basketball. Once again, we're in the middle of the playoffs, so there's definitely some impact from that here. Chris, what do we got?
Yeah, so I had two obvious options here based on the data and based on following the sport for the last month, and they were Jimmy Butler and Jamal Murray. And Jimmy Butler's index is up 33% over the last month, which is a lot. That's a huge jump. But Jamal Murray's is up 44% over the last month, which is the last time I checked even more. So I went with Murray, and let me just tell you a little something about the bigger arc of Jamal Murray and how that factors into this 44% climb in the last month. So Murray's index peaked in late 2020. So it kind of had two peaks. It had one peak, obviously, during the bubble, during 2020. That was a time, a really unique time in the hobby when there were a lot of eyes watching the bubble, and he was putting up some incredible playoff games, some of the best ever played, especially in that first round against Utah, which went 7, and him and Donovan Mitchell going back and forth. It was unbelievable. And then after the Nuggets got bounced, his market cooled, and then it surged again early during the following NBA season. And it actually hit its highest mark at the turn of the year, going from 2020 to 2021. And then he got hurt towards the end of that season, and then he missed the playoffs. Then he missed the entire following season and the playoffs. And it just seems like Murray completely fell out of sight, not of mind. And that even carried over into this season when he put up, by all accounts, good numbers, maybe borderline all-star numbers, but didn't really get much national media recognition, didn't really have any huge breakout games this season, no 50-point games or anything this season. But now here we are in the playoffs, and he's having these monstrous games, and on multiple occasions he's been the best player on the floor during these playoffs. So he's having a return. He's reminding people of how great he can be when he's healthy and when he's on the biggest stage. But what's so fascinating is that comparing even where his market is today, factoring in that 44% growth over last month, his index is down 85% from its highest point there, right when we turned the calendar from 2020 to 2021. 85% Going down 85% is a lot different than going up 85%. You can only go down 100% and then you're at zero. So 85% is such a bludgeoning to a player's market, whereas going up 85% is incredible, but you know, we've seen players' markets go up thousands of percent. You know, when you're going up, you don't have a ceiling of 100%. You go up 200%, 500%, 1,000%. But coming down 85%, you're almost all the way down. That's a massive decline. So for him to rebound 44% is noteworthy, but it also has to be discussed in the context of his index on card letter lost 85% of its value over the last 2 to 2.5 years. So would love to know how you guys feel about Jamal Murray, his collectability, not just in the moment, but also going forward. Is this a player who has the potential to be a true PC for life type of player?
I think there's a few different things at play right now. In the playoffs, there's a lot more eyes on the Denver Nuggets basketball team. And he always seems to step up and always seems to have those big moments. When his market was craziest, I feel like he was the most culturally relevant. Everybody was glued to the bubble playoffs. Everybody was so hungry for live sporting events. The card market was popping at like its highest level ever. It makes a lot of sense that his pricing surged, especially because he was someone who was more obtainable than a lot of the other stars in the league. And he was doing some really, really impressive things, really capturing culture as a whole, outside of basketball, outside of sports, outside of cards. People were talking about Jamal Murray everywhere. And he's having flashes of that again. But to answer your question about like collectability long-term, I think there's going to be some people, Kentucky collectors, Denver Nugget diehards that are going to love collecting him. But he reminds me a lot of like the Tyler Hero types, Zach LaVine to an extent, where they're definitely collectible. They're definitely fun. But can they take that level other than having just like some incredible games, incredible moments? Can they really take that to superstardom level, really be the number one on a team? I don't know if Jamal Murray is that person. He doesn't really fit the profile of someone I want to collect, but man, is he fun to watch and man, is he good.
Plus, he can't really be number one on his team. I mean, he's kind of paired with a 2-time NBA MVP. So, you're kind of blocked on that path on your own team. But I also think, collectability wise, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world, knowing that you're paired every year with an MVP caliber player. So, if you're looking to get into him because you think maybe his values are just going to skyrocket, maybe that's not the case. But I feel like, if you really enjoy watching the team play and, want to collect cards at a pretty affordable level of a star caliber player, looking at his player index here, I'm looking at some of his cards, like what you can get a PSA 10 optic hollow rookie of his for. Like, I mean, that's, under
first year optic too.
Yeah, under $200. I mean, that's pretty reasonable for a player of his pedigree.
I love that optic design. And even like the Prism Silver stuff, pretty low pop in 2016.
Oh, yeah.
That optic hollow once sold for $900. And now, it got as low as $81 last November. It was $81. Today it's $150. So it's nearly doubled in value, which is, remarkable. But the bigger picture is that it once was worth many multiples more. So yeah, but yeah, I mean, I'm with Jack and I'm with you as well, Ryan. It's that card is awesome. I'm just looking at a big image of it now and love that year of optic. That year of optic only becomes more iconic the more time passes. So really, really nice card.
Great photo. The 1990 Donruss throwback script of the name on the top. Just really cool all around.
Such a great design.
Chris, whose index that fell in April 2023 really stood out to you?
The faller for this month comes from Major League Baseball. No surprise there. This is pretty normal once a season gets started for any of the sports. The preseason excitement wears off. We hunker down for the long slog of the season. And for baseball, that's the longest slog of any of the major sports. The dropper is Wander Franco, who is down 24% this month, and his index has corrected substantially. So comparing where his index, so like we talked about Murray, and Murray peaked at the turn of the new year from 2020 going into 2021. Franco's index peaked in May of last year. So about a year ago, his index peaked, and he's down about 65 to 70% off of his peak, which is enormous. In the context of everything, it's just interesting to note here, because I'm the furthest thing from a knower of baseball, but it seems like he's got a lot of good prospects, and not only career-wise, but just this season and his team as well. So maybe you guys can tell me what's going on with Wander Franco's market.
I've got an initial thought, Chris, and I think it has to do with the index itself. So Card Ladder, as we all know, they don't just, like, the second a card is released, they don't automatically put it in there. They let it sit, they let the market decide, and they slowly start adding cards to players. The more those cards have staying power. But if you look at the index right now, it's all 2019 Bowman stuff. And all the new Wander Franco rookie cards that have been released, the Topps Chrome, the Topps Chrome Sonic, the Topps Chrome Black, the Topps Chrome Sapphire, all the super short prints, all of these really collectible, Topps Dynasty that just released, the inventory of Wander Franco cards, very collectible flagship Wander Franco cards, has expanded so much that I think one thing this says is that the Bowman stuff becomes a little bit less collectible when there's so many more options for you to turn to when it comes to flagship rookie or flagship Bowman first.
Yeah, I think you see that with Bowman firsts, kind of like what we were talking about with Volpe earlier in the show. You see this happen with a lot of hot prospects. There's a lot of people who get into Bowman for prospecting, and then there's a lot of people who wait because they want to see a guy do it at the major league level before making a decision to dive in and start collecting their cards. And by then, I think you err towards the flagship rookie cards with the rookie badge and the traditional Topps Chrome and the parallels and things like that. And Wander, a lot of those released last year while he was dealing with injuries. So his market's been really interesting because, we talk about his index going down 24% last month, but he's arguably the best player on the best team in baseball right now. And this is, again, a testament to the fact that baseball is a marathon and not a sprint. You mentioned it, the long slog of summer and the baseball season. That's kind of where we're at. As you get towards June, the hype wears off from the beginning of the season, and you just kind of identify the guys who have that staying power. Wander's always looked to me like a player who has that staying power. If you look at him right now, he's on pace for potentially a 30-30 season in his second full season in the majors. He has a team that's well on pace to go over 100 wins this year. He does, though, still have some things that work against him. He plays for a franchise that doesn't have a very big fan base or very strong fan base and doesn't get a lot of national recognition. So, yeah, there's some things working against him there. But, I still feel pretty bullish on him as a player in the hobby.
Vegas certainly likes him. I'm looking up the odds right now. Ohtani, of course, is the runaway favorite. Number 2 is Mike Trout. Number 3 is Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Number 4, Wander Franco, 14-1. Vegas has their eye on him. The Rays are for real. The name I kind of like on here, Adley Rutschman, 35-1. Orioles look fun. He is very, very impressive. As just like a leader, as a hitter, as a catcher, every single thing that he's doing right now has been awesome to see.
The only thing you worry about is it's same thing with Wander. He's just going to get lost in that division. The division's an absolute juggernaut right now. The Yankees are above 500, and they're 10 games out of first place and last place.
Yeah, Bo Bichette's having like an incredible year. No one's even noticing because there's so much talent there.
All right, so we're going to move on, and let's talk about rising and falling cards, individual cards that showed big movement in both directions in April 2023. Chris, what took a big jump up?
Yeah, so this is the inverse of the phenomenon where during the season, everybody's loaded up on their cards before the season, and now they're just demand goes down a bit because people are they have the cards they wanted for the most part, and now they're waiting and seeing how things are going to play out, which is one of the most fun parts of collecting for me. Just as a brief side tangent here, I love building up a PC of a player that I want to root for the duration of the season or even longer, and then just enjoying it, and like I don't really keep a close eye on the market as the season sort of goes up and down for that particular player. I enjoy it when the player plays well. I'm really happy to have their cards. And there's something to that. There's the momentum that sort of gives out as the season begins. Well, it's the inverse in the offseason. In the offseason, people are looking to make their bet. They're looking for the player that they want to load up on, or the player that they think is due for a big season, or maybe looking to start new collections. But it's fascinating how that dynamic works. And here's a great example of it. So the rising card that I've selected for this month is the 2020 Prism Joe Burrow purple parallel, which is numbered to 125 and a PSA 10. This card's a pop 20, and it's up 61% within the span of the last month, which is a huge increase in value. It last sold for $2,975 a few days ago, and it's almost to its peak price. It has one sale ever that was higher, which it sold for $3,000 about a year and a half ago, a little bit less, when Burrow made that Super Bowl run, that improbable Super Bowl run before we really knew how great he is. And Burrow kind of reminds me of the Jamal Murray and the Jimmy Butler just a little bit, because he's proven himself to be such a playoff riser for multiple seasons in a row, which is kind of an interesting thread I'm just now noticing as we go through these players. But the thing about Burrow is this card's up 61%, which is huge. But if you zoom out and look at the Burrow index as a whole, it is up 10% over the last month as well. So Burrow's market is strong right now. It's growing. And then you have certain cards like this one, which, it's only a pop 20. It's a really nice looking Prism parallel. Certainly not the most desirable of all of his, but a really nice looking one. And it's up 61%. So that's our riser for this week, guys, is Joe Burrow.
Joe Burrow has entered that territory in the hobby now where I like to call him just off-season proof, because this is a second straight off-season where, we just haven't seen his card prices in the market really go to sleep during the off-season. Not that the hype is the same as it was in January, February, but, it doesn't really soften a whole lot.
It's a great card, too. Prism Purple, true color, PSA 10. The PSA 10s weren't falling all the time with 2020 Prism. And this particular card doesn't go up to sale very often. I once owned the Justin Herbert equivalent purple Prism PSA 10. And between the time I bought it and the time I eventually moved it, I don't think it sold one time. And I held it for probably 8 months. I traded it at the National in a big deal. Yeah, these cards just don't go up very often. So this jumping up like it did doesn't really surprise me, because if this is a card you want and it comes up, you're going to have to smash either buy now or, be in a bidding war with someone, because there isn't 3 more appearing the next day or 6 more on another marketplace. Something to do with rarity right there with that pop 20.
As the years go on, the 2020 and 2021 Prism, for football and basketball, I think you're going to see a lot of that where, especially these cards in high grades, they don't come up for sale all that often, and it's definitely going to be baked into the price. So Chris, what fell the most that stood out to you in April 2023?
The faller for this episode is Ja Morant, who has had less than an ideal season. I think most people would agree, whether it was the unceremonious exit from the playoffs to the underdog play-in Lakers. I mean, you fight all season to get the number 2 seed, and then you lose to a play-in team. Although it's not quite that simple, but that's disappointing. And there was some off-court stuff that was disappointing, and overall, just a very it's a bit of a sour mood surrounding him in the short term. In the long term, I think most would agree he's the most exciting player that the NBA has on the court right now, and he's only going to get better. And he, even in these playoffs, he had a huge game. But anyway, I digress. The card that I've selected is the 2019 Crown Royale Kaboom. The speaking of polarizing cards, the polarizing Kaboom. In this case, it's a PSA 9, which is a pop 15. There are 25 copies graded higher. This card is down 39% this month. Ja Morant's rookie Kaboom PSA 9 down 39%. It's the lowest this card has sold since April of 2021. And that was around the time when Morant was starting to be recognized as a sort of maybe, borderline MVP candidate, superstar player. So he's fallen quite a bit since then, and his index outside of this particular card, his index on card ladder as a whole is down 28% itself. So this isn't an outlier. This is pretty typical for what we're seeing with Morant right now. So great card. If you look at the card itself, I mean, the image, the illustration that they've used is just beautiful. It really is Morant. I mean, before we fully knew the acrobatics, or at least before I fully understood what Morant was capable of athletically on the floor, this image on this kaboom really, it captures his high flying style. So interesting card to have this level of correction, but it sort of speaks to what's going on with Ja Morant's market and collectability in the short term right now.
It's an incredible design. Probably my favorite modern, like ultra modern kaboom card is this right here. I think some of it, Ja Morant is selectable. Obviously, he was in the news for the wrong reasons a few months ago. But I think the Grizzlies kind of going from like the scrappy underdog to this kind of like heel of the NBA and Dylan Brooks and everything. It just sort of painted the Grizzlies in not the best light. But I do think they learned a few lessons this year. And I do think they're going to be even better next year. And I do think Ja Morant is going to be great. So I think this is a really interesting time to be looking at his cards when a lot of the momentum and culture in sports is sort of looking elsewhere, especially during the playoffs with all these amazing players left. Kind of keep an eye on some Ja Morant cards, because this rookie kaboom is like a card.
Mm-hmm. That's a cornerstone of your PC type card.
Yeah. That seems awfully inexpensive, under $2,000, considering how rare that card is, how coveted that insert set is, how incredible that artwork on the card is. And, they don't come up a whole lot either. And it seems like a pretty good steal if you're all in on Ja.
All right. So we're going to wrap things up this month like we always like to. What was your biggest hobby takeaway this month, April 2023? As we head towards the summer months, Chris, let's start with you. What do you got?
Yeah, let's start. So I always take a very risky approach to this segment of the index episodes because I never prepare anything for this segment. I just wait. I let the episode unfold. I listen to what you guys have to say. I sort of see if I can find a common theme that comes up as we discuss. And I did, and I'm gonna borrow it from Jack, who pointed it out. But I know this strategy is gonna backfire on me one day, and I'm just gonna draw a blank, but not today. So today, the big picture takeaway for me this month is the importance of cultural impact outside of the stats, outside of the trophy case, outside of a player's accomplishments on the field or on the floor or on the ice or what have you, the cultural impact. And we had 4 examples of it in today's episode. So first we have The Rock. I think, Ryan, you actually maybe were the one to first sort of start this motif that recurred by mentioning The Rock has such a cultural impact as a public figure, as a former athlete, as a movie star, as a perennial dark horse candidate to run for president. He's always part of the culture in some way or another, and just a universally liked figure. Okay, then second we had Anthony Volpe, and it was Jack who pointed out, the mystique, the transcendence of wearing the Yankees uniform. I think there's a Yankees cultural factor here that magnifies Volpe's impact. We talked about Jamal Murray, and again, it was Jack who pointed out that there were so many eyes on the bubble playoffs in particular, and that was emphasizing his market at that time, and that basketball and the NBA and the bubble were such a cultural, distraction from the times that everybody, not just us in this country, but worldwide, everything we were experiencing. The bubble was just, it had a different sort of captivation, a different level of magnetism that brought us all into it. So there's the cultural import theme again. And then finally, the fourth example that I have, it's not quite as strong as the other three, but looking at the correction that we've seen in Morant's market recently speaks a bit, I think, to some cultural impact. Morant sort of, at least in the short term, losing a little bit of cultural cachet because of some unpopular things, to put it euphemistically, that happened off court. That's not to say there won't be a return. I think there absolutely will. I think maybe even ultimately in the long term, some of the controversy, the polarizing aspect of Morant makes him become even more of a fascination, even more of a potentially iconic player. But certainly I think we're seeing off-court stuff with Morant play a role in people being a little more patient or cautious in collecting him and collecting his cards. So that's my takeaway, guys. The importance of cultural impact on players' markets.
I had a few ideas for this month, but going into this conversation, the Bowman Chrome first true rookie card is something that I think we need to dive into in a really big way and put some really incredible card ladder data behind this. How does the Bowman Chrome first market of a player shift as flagship rookie cards come off? And then how does it shift once both of those things have been out for a significant amount of time? I think there's a lot of interesting data that we can sort of pull together and come up with some type of theory on how the market reacts to these new releases coming out and paint a picture on potentially kind of like when to move into cards, when to move out of cards, that type of things when it comes to building a collection of a player that you really want to collect. But, it might not be the smartest move to buy at this point. You should be looking at this point, and that type of thing. Could be a really interesting deep dive data study. And that is really what I pulled away the most from this conversation.
Mine is kind of in line with what you were saying right there at the end about, if you're collecting a player, when are the times to maybe look at getting into cards of theirs that you really want? When's the right time to move certain cards? And, the Wander Franco market or index falling by 24% in April really spoke to me. We've kind of learned in the modern hobby how these cycles work, what the prices look like on certain guys during spring training and in that 4 to 6 week ramp up to opening day. And then once the opening day hype wears off, what happens? Here's a guy who's on a team that could be destined for history here this season, and he's having a great start to the year, and the market's falling. And, it really makes you look at, do you look at acquiring guys' cards as the season's getting ready to approach? Do you wait until the offseason? Do you wait until the dog days of summer? So I think it's just, it's another feather in the cap of you can really use data to really hammer down your strategies for how you build a collection of an individual player.
I think it's important to note too, when we say moving in and out of cards, we're not like going on vacation with this money. Every single person on this podcast right now is so obsessed. It's all about just building our collection more efficiently and effectively so we can have more cards and better cards and bigger cards. Not about like, hey, how can I like go all in on some prospect, pump it up and move out of it so I can buy like a watch or whatever it might be. That's not how we move.
So I can go to Tahiti for Christmas or something like that. No, 90% of the time I'm going to say when I'm selling cards, it's to get other cards. Well, this has been another great, insightful episode of The Index. Chris McGill from Card Ladder bringing the data. Thank you for that. For Jack Archer, for Chris, I'm Ryan Green. We'll be back with more next week here on the PSA Pod.